All right, welcome to this lunch talk. This is a bi-weekly event here at The Great Journey, where we invite people from the industry to share their knowledge and tell their stories. My name is Björn Toreld, and I am a coordinator here at The Great Journey, and really happy to see you all here today. Usually I'm the one controlling the stream, so it's going to be interesting doing both hosting and handling the stream. But if you want to, or you are interested in the upcoming talks here at The Great Journey, you can follow our event page on Facebook, or follow the updates on our social media channels. But let's get on to the lunch talk. Today we welcome Elena, who is a senior QA analyst at King. And, well, you know, King has been developing games such as Candy Crush. But I'll leave it to Elena to tell us more about it. So over to you, Elena.
With a personal story, actually. My kids just started in the new kindergarten, and I'm still getting to know people who work there. And this morning, when I was dropping off my daughter in the kindergarten, one of the teachers asked me what I'm doing for life. And I was like, well, I work as a QA analyst in the gaming company. And she was like, what's that? I tried to explain. I said, well, I work with Candy Crush, and my main goal is to make sure that the game works fine before we actually get it to the real players, real customers. And she was like, oh my God, this is a dream job. You play Candy Crush all day long and you get paid for that. So my name is Elena Bazina. I work as a senior QA analyst at King. And today I'm going to be telling you about this dream job when you play games all day long and you get paid for that. Or on a more serious note, I will tell you what I'm actually doing at work. Also, I will try to explain different views on QA role. And of course, I will tell you how we work with QA at King with Candy Crush, because I'm working with Candy Crush. It's my main specialization here. But first, let me tell you a couple of words about me. I have been working in the gaming industry for 6 years, and I have been at King for 3 years now. And as I said, I work with Candy Crush, and it has been so far so good. So if you guys are considering King as your potential place to work, I can confirm it's good. Go for it. Yeah. And what about King? Probably most of you know about this company, but a little recap maybe. So it was founded in 2003. Right now we have more than 200 titles and over 2,000 employees all over the world in 10 different offices and studios. And according to the latest data from Q3 2020, we have 249 million monthly active users. And here are our famous titles: Candy Crush, of course, Pet Rescue, Bubble Witch, Farm Heroes. Maybe you tried some of them. And at King, we work agile. I mean, agile seems to be a super big thing right now. Scrum and Kanban conquer the world. And basically what it means that our development process is iterative with frequent and early deliverables. And because of this frequent and early deliverables, we get a constant feedback from our players. And based on this feedback, we try to improve our features in our game so it will have a better and better quality. And it's also important to understand how we see quality. I really like this definition from Simon Pryor. Simon Pryor, by the way, is a QA lead at EasyJet. And I'm not going to read it, you can see it on the screen. Why I like it so much? Because it's very customer, like user-centric. And this is how we treat quality at King as well. I mean, you can have a feature that is implemented in a super nice way with 0 bugs, but if it doesn't make sense for your customer, for your player, if it's not maybe clear enough, or it doesn't fun to interact with, then the quality of this feature is actually not very high, and it also doesn't contribute to your game. I mean, it doesn't make your game better. So this is how we think about quality at King. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about different views on a QA role. And I will start with a more traditional approach where QA stands for quality assurance. What actually QA people do here in this approach? Well, simple enough. Literally, they assure quality I know in many companies it's the case when testers or QA people get a final say if the game product good enough to be released. And what is wrong about it is actually it means that testers are the only one who test, and it's also kind of testers are the only one who care about the quality of the product. I mean, and all other people, all other roles, they just don't care. And if you think about it, not like from a gaming industry perspective, but like from real life perspective, it's also kind of a little bit weird. I mean, imagine if, let's say, like a door in your house will get broken, and then you call the special company and they send you a professional to fix it, and then this guy or girl will fix the door, and then he or she will leave without even trying if it works or not. I mean, wouldn't be this weird? So why would we have the same experience in the gaming company? I mean, everyone should be involved in this process. Oops. Sorry. So another thing that is happens in the traditional approach is also testing is a phase that happens after the development process. And even, for example, now many companies are working agile. Nothing is actually changed when it comes to testing. Probably the chunk that you get to test is a little bit smaller than if we were speaking about waterfall, but still testing is something that happens after the development process. And the good actually indicate for that, if you look at your Scrum boards and you see columns like to do, doing, then testing, and then done. So it means like the testers have to wait, or like everyone have to take until development is done when they start testing. What is bad about it? First of all, the testers has nothing to do in the beginning of the sprint. In the beginning, when you just plan on a designing your project, and you have like a huge overload at the end, and the most like difficult or the most strange part here is actually that as a QA person that gets a product to test only after the whole development is done, you cannot do much about this particular product. I mean, there is a famous saying that you cannot test quality into the product. I mean, of course, you can give your recommendation for the next build, how you can improve it next time they're going to build. But right now, with this build in your hands, you can either say if it's good or not. I mean, you can find bugs, but you cannot do anything about it. It's already there. It's already developed, designed, planned, built, developed. I mean, it's here. So you cannot do anything about it. And I mean, in this case, you as a tester, you as a QA, you feel that you don't have any influence on the product. You can just, I mean, say if it's good or not. You don't contribute to the development process so much. And also people think that the main focus, the main goal of testing is actually to find bugs. And I know in many companies, actually, testers get measured, testers' productivity get measured by the number of found bugs. And what is wrong with this approach is actually, as a QA person, in this case, you are not interested to have a high quality product. You're more interested in having a really bad quality product, because then you can find a lot of bugs. Then you can get your like performance review super good, get a salary raise or whatever perks we're talking about. So this is basically you as a QA interested in having as bad quality product as possible. So this is a little bit strange in this context, I guess. There is also a common vision of testers that they like to break stuff. And I remember when I just started my career, I was even writing it in my CV and motivation letters that I like to break stuff in a creative way. But what's wrong with this is actually that it creates a really unhealthy relationship in the team. Imagine you have developers and they're building the nice product that they're developing a game and they build something, and then testers come and they just break everything. What would you think about these people? You would hate them. Or I mean, maybe hate is a too strong word, but at least it's a little bit unhealthy, a little bit strange that two teams or like two roles in your team have not only different roles, it's actually not only different goals, it's really like opposite goals. One had a goal to build, another have a goal to break. This is really not contributing to a nice working process. Also, in a more traditional way, if we think about testers, we also think about someone who sits there with endless test cases and just checking if it's pass or fail, pass or fail. And if you think about testers or QA a job from this perspective, it sounds so damn boring. I mean, would anyone in the world would like to do that? It sounds really, really boring. I mean, you just sit there and check. So this is the problems that we identify or we saw with traditional QA approach, and we try to solve them at King with having something that we call quality assistance instead of quality assurance. What does it mean? How we work at King? So first, quality of ownership sits with the entire team, not just QA. It means that the whole team is responsible for testing the product, and the whole team decides if the product is good enough to be released or not. And it's really, actually, we contributing a lot from having different crafts or different people in our team to test, because I mean we all have different personal and professional backgrounds. For example, at King we have a lot of people from different countries, and our foreign settings by default languages are really different. And by having this one testing session when everyone just tests on their mother tongue, it's really, I mean, we just save resources and we can check different translations super fast. And of course, more importantly here, that we bring our professional expertise here. For example, UX designers, artists, UI specialists who test, they can also find super small maybe bugs or super small graphical things that needs to be improved. Probably other people wouldn't be noticed even. And here is also important that other roles in your team, like producers, scrum masters, business performance people, they also get to test product. Because I mean, a game suddenly becomes something you have in your hand, you can touch, you can feel. It's not something you have on, in a nice deck or as like in a business idea. It's something you can experience as a user, as a player, because I mean everyone can be a player of Candy Crush. So we can play ourselves and see if it's fun enough, if it's good enough, is it like, does it make sense, do I understand from a player's perspective, why do I need to do certain steps. So it also helps our team members to understand the game better, and it also helps us to increase the quality of our game, because we get all this different roles perspective and different people's perspective. And you can ask me now, so if you're not testing at work, what are you actually doing there? And there are different things I am as a QA analyst responsible for. For example, I am coaching the quality mindset. Of course, you have to remind your team members about quality, that how I understand it, have, for example, have often talked to customer support to see what is there in the customer side, check Google reviews, also monitor how our players persist quality, what do we need to improve and how. Driving quality initiatives. For example, I was the one responsible for organizing a lunch and test event at King before Corona times. When we invited people from different games actually to test one particular feature in one game, and in this case we helped our employees at King to get the knowledge how to test, how to use different console commands, how do we come up with different test scenarios, what perspective do we use, what the scope, and how basically you test, how do you see this user-centric approach. And also it helps us to learn more about the games that are developed by King, because King is so big and maybe sometimes we don't even know what is this game is about, or maybe we have a really not very deep view about it. So it helps us to kind of spread this testing culture and also learn about King's game. Also what I'm doing is influencing and inspiring designs. So I'm there with my team from the really beginning of the planning project. Even when I decide to design a feature, develop feature, I'm there with them to cover some edge cases, to ask tricky questions, to ask what if, did you think about, for example, blind people? Did you think about left-handed people? What will happen in the offline mode? And all this kind of things, so that they get covered by my team. Of course, providing testing expertise. We are testing as everyone else in the team. It's not like I'm coming to the testing session doing nothing. I also test, and I also try to think as a user, think as a player. Does Candy Crush make sense to me as well? And when we have the testing sessions, QA analysts, in our case, are responsible for facilitating them. So we usually bring the scope and we explain what we need to test and how we need to test. Here and of course, is preventing, mitigating, and identifying problems and risks in different steps of the development process, during the design, during the development, of course, and in like post-production. When we already released, we also try to monitor and see how the game behaves. Here I put you an example of this session basics project testing, our team testing session, as I called it before. So, for example, here you see the name of the feature that we have, also the name of the team that is developed. Candy Crush team is very big, so we have different internal teams in Candy Crush, and they all have these funny names like Dark Side, Saga, and other names. For example, so when you test and you don't know and you're not sure about something or you found a bug, you can always know who you should ask. And here is the like small description of what you need to do. And then after you got this this list, you're basically free to go wild and just do whatever you think you would do as a user, as a player, and how you would test. And of course, we'll provide here some console commands. This is the movement how you open the console, and then you can write some console commands and cheats. If there are some cheats, then you will just tell it to people who are participating in the testing session, of course. Then, for us, the goal of testing is not actually to find bugs, but to prevent bugs. So we're not celebrating when we found the bug. Instead, we are celebrating with our team when we created a super good product. When we see that there is like crash rate is super low. When we see that we get the positive feedback from our players on our community page and on our App Store and Google Play. So our goal is to actually prevent bugs from appearing rather than to find them at the end. And in this case, testing for us is a constant. It's not just a phase that comes from after the development process. So scrub the testing column, put all testing tasks together as development tasks, because testing is something that needs to come naturally. For example, as documentation, as development, as for example, coming up with different UX, UI, like mock-ups and stuff. Sometimes I even ask to challenge my developers and to create as many testing tasks as possible before they start develop anything. So we know, for example, when we sit on the planning session and we discuss what we're going to do, I ask them, so how are we going to test this? How can we, for example, what is the kill switch for that? How can we test that the kill switch works? So all this kind of stuff, we just think about testing even before we start development process. And as I said before, of course, we try to mitigate the design risks. This is exactly why testers need to be there when you just plan your feature, when you just design it. Of course, I mean, usually it happens that some creative people come up with a good idea, like based on some, I don't know, customer research. And then you bring a developer who will tell you if it's possible from a tech perspective. But it's also nice to bring testers who would tell you, who would help you to slice your feature in a really good slices so they can be testable easily. And then at the end, when you release, for example, or if you find a problem somewhere, you can easily detect from which piece of code this particular problem arrived. So it basically contributes, so it makes you build better quality applications because you take into consideration different edge case scenarios. But it also, in case something happened, it also help you to identify where this risk or where this problem comes from. And of course, do you remember when I tried to portray a traditional tester who's sitting there and does the pass and fail things? Scrap it. We are focusing on exploratory testing and risk-based testing instead. So no more boring things. Testing is about exploring. So I mean, you can portray yourself as an adventurer who goes like in a discovery mission to find out what your application or your game can handle or cannot handle. You ask all this tricky question, what if happens, all these edge cases and scenarios. And if you see yourself, or like your role from this perspective, all of a sudden it becomes super interesting. And I mean, it's just, I mean, super creative. So because we pay so much attention to quality, there are different titles at King who are responsible for quality, and here I just put some of them. You can see, of course, Agile Testing Lead, who are kind of defining the overall testing direction for us, or the quality direction, and drives different quality initiatives. Of course, we have QA analyst as me, who are embedded in the different game teams and coaching the team members in quality, basically. We have a quick regression team that help us with testing with cross games features, we call it. I mean, because there are some features in our games at King, they're kind of repeating themselves in different games. And because I only work, for example, with Candy Crush Saga, I know everything about Candy Crush Saga, but probably I'm not such an expert in like Soda or any other games. And because these testers, they are focusing on testing these cross-game things, they know better how this feature should work and what is the expected outcome for these cross-games features. Of course, we have test automation engineers. We actually, I mean, spend a lot of time on automation. We allocate a lot of resources to automation. So all our boring checking stuff is done by automated framework. We have both like automation, and even we use the AI bot that kind of also bring this user perspective, and not only checking the code, but also goes like through the application and pressing the buttons on the game. And I also put here data scientists and developers because, I mean, of course, data scientists help us to monitor how the game behaves, but not only from a business perspective, but also from a customer perspective. Like, does this A/B test make sense? Do people interact with things? I mean, we have jokes that we just basically A/B test every button, but it's also important to understand if your player interacts with this particular feature, with this particular button, if it needs to be there, or often kind of review your design or review your game. Maybe you need to remove something from there. Maybe it was there from the beginning and it was super cool because it has this novelty effect. People were like, oh, curious, what is it? And then they interacted with it. But maybe it became boring after a while, and then you have to remove it. So data scientists are really good at helping us identifying these areas. And of course, developers, I mean, because developers also need to test things. And just a little recap how we work with quality at King, how we think about quality at King. You probably know this super famous Agile Manifesto. And we also think that we need to have the quality assistant manifesto in this case. And of course, we understand that there is value on things that are listed here on the, what is it for you, on the right. We value things that are on the left more. We prefer to test throughout rather than testing at the end. And we're focusing on preventing bugs and not on finding bugs. And our goal is to actually build the best system and not to break the system. And for us, it's the team who owns the quality, not QA analysts. I hope it made some sense. And if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you so much for that amazing talk, Elena.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions here from the chat. So let's start off with a simple question. How does a typical day of work look for you?
It really depends in what cycle of the production process we are. For example, if it is we're just designing a feature, then it's some meetings when we come together and discuss different scenarios and different possibilities. Then a lot of research from my side. I try to for example, we are coming up with a feature. I'm working with a team in the Candy Crush. I'm working with the team that is responsible for ads. So if you're seeing any ads implemented in the game, this is my area. So for example, we decided to have a new ads placement in the game. Then we have the team meeting. We're also participating and hear ideas from our designers and like producers why we need to implement this particular feature and where it will be placed. And I'm also trying to think what are the different risks there. How is it maybe it's clashing with other features, maybe it is like it didn't take into consideration, let's say, like landscape view. Then after this meeting, I do some research on my own, like to go through the application, like portraying this feature being in the game and see how it behaves. Then usually, probably like every day almost, we organize a testing session. Then I need to prepare a little bit for this team testing session. I talk with the developer who developed this particular feature. What is the scope? What is the flow actually we're testing? So sometimes I prepare some instructions in like Miro board or try to like to do fun things maybe with the testing cards. And we test basically. So this is a big part of my work. And also we have a lot of different quality initiatives, like for example, I mentioned this lunch and talk for lunch and test thing. So then it's also some kind of like candy wide or king wide initiatives I'm working with. So this is my typical day, I would say. If it's more to the production, if we need to release, then we're also testing it on master, and then we also monitor the game in like App Store, Google Play, etc.
Right. So I have another question. Do you ever decide not to fix a bug because the cost of fixing it will be too high?
For fixing it, so if we think that we decided not to fix the bug because it was too like costly to fix the bug.
Yeah.
No, never. I mean, developers in our team, in my team, they're so, how to say, they would refactor stuff until it's super polished. Even sometimes I have to say maybe we need to stop it, because I mean we always I never heard about it. We go for very costly initiatives. Sometimes if we think that I mean the Candy Crush Saga is 8 years old, so sometimes the for example the payment system that was in Candy Crush, it became very old, so we decided to kind of scrap it and build a new payment system. Now it happens with the ad system that we decide to kind of clean it up. So no, we always prioritize quality, and I mean, the most important thing here is actually to communicate it to producers like higher up. Why do we need to have human resources spent on this particular project? So we always fix, like not fixing bugs, but as you say, like preventing bugs. When we look at our code and we see that this particular part needs to be fixed or needs to be refactored, we always put time to doing it.
It's really nice hearing that you go through with such quality with fixing every bug. All right. How has exploratory testing using AI helped the quality at King?
Helped a lot because it helped, for example, to test on different languages. Before we had to basically ask like a team of, because Candy Crush Saga is supported in 22 languages, and of course we get some translations, but sometimes it can be missing strings, and if you do it like manually, it's really difficult. And if you go just the code-based testing, then it's you. Of course, you see that the string is there, but maybe you have a special fonts. And I mean, I'm Russian, and there is always a problem with Cyrillic alphabet that it takes too long space, or like French, for example, words are super long and then they don't fit in the, I don't know, like a speech bubble or something. And these things cannot be covered by like standard automation. There needs to be have like a human touch. But we also saw that's a little bit boring, so we trained our AI bot to also to look at this, for example, speech bubbles where the text needs to be, and to see if it's aligned properly, if it doesn't go under, if it doesn't cover anything in the text. So for example, this is an example how it's like one of the tasks that our AI bot does. Of course, it also trained on other things, but this is just something like as an example.
Okay. Right, another question. who is managing the release? Is it QA, developers, or anyone else?
We have, as I said, we have several teams in Candy Crush Saga. And the release responsibilities are rotating between these teams. So we have a release calendar where you like put your team. You ask with your team members that like no one is or like not everyone is going on vacation, and you choose like 2 week time frame where like almost all your team members are in the are there. And then so it's the team responsibility to do a release for the whole Candy Crush Saga, and we have a really like clear procedure. Basically, in order to do a release, you don't need to have any like technical skills. I mean, yeah, you need to prepare a build. Basically, as a developer, you need to create a build, but it's super easy. I mean, anyone can trigger a build from Jenkins, and that's it basically. So you don't have to have any QA skills, no developer skills. So basically, anyone in our team, like Scrum Masters, can do a release. So it's a team responsibility. We share responsibilities within the team, and in the team, every like people from different roles can do anything basically.
Right, I'll go on to more like the indie stage. What are the best tips for an indie developer in terms of testing?
Test as early as possible. As I said, try to test your design first, even not wait for having a perfect game, perfect build, perfect something, because I mean you probably have some bugs in your head. You think, okay, this build is buggy, I'm not going to test it. But believe me, when you put it on your device, you will find even more bugs, and it would be nice to kind of fix them even, I mean, as early as possible. Also test on your device, not on your machine. I mean, because you see different things, try to cover different devices. Low-end devices sometimes can be a problem. Try to be exploratory as possible. And I would recommend you, even before you start developing stuff, also to come up with things that you need to take into consideration, like super easy, for example, like languages, what you're going to support, online, offline, and other things that you think is important for you, for your game, like how it's going to be functioning. List them, and then when you're going to be going further with your development process, just test these things.
Right. Let's move on to many people want to start their career in QA, but what are your best tips for people that are interested in starting as a QA?
I think, yeah, I actually would like to encourage you, if you want to start your QA career, I mean, just start it, just put a nice CV, I mean, with things that you are interested in, because none of my colleagues, to be honest, at King, or at least in Candy Crush, I'm not gonna, yeah, have any, like a special QA degree. So basically, we all come from different backgrounds. I have like zero tech skills. My degree is in journalism. So you don't be afraid. So I don't want this background, that you don't have this specific background, to kind of hold you back from applying for a position. Just be open and show your passion in your maybe motivation letter. Why do you want to be QA? Why do you think that it's quality is something for you? Because it's, as you see, I mean, QA role is not only like technical stuff. You don't only test. It's also about, for example, asking right questions. And for me, it was important, like, for example, how I did it. I show in my CV that I can ask important question. I can ask exact questions in a different stage of the development process. So if you see that the position and you like this position and you think that you are not kind of qualified for this position, just apply. We also try to, for example, at King, we put a lot of work to work with HR and don't ask for a previous experience, because this is how we can help us to build kind of a community for everyone. You don't really need to have any like game experience to start with a QA in gaming. I mean, this is what I'm trying to say. And also maybe another tip, just try to attend, but I see that you're already doing it. Try to attend different meetups where you can actually hang out with people who already worked in the industry. So they can give you some tips, for example, for internships, or maybe for some like side projects where you can basically be and show yourself.
It's really interesting to hear about your background as a journalist coming into the game industry, and as you said, it is really important to have different kinds of people with different knowledges and experiences that you can really put to use in developing games, so you get a more inclusive environment as well.
Exactly.
Let's see if you have any more questions. Yeah. How big is your QA team?
In Candy, I couldn't say. In Candy, I wanted to comment, now I'm afraid to say, like, it also depends if so we have, like, right now 3 automation engineers and also 1 engineer who is working particularly with our AI bot. And then we have around 10 QA analysts in Candy Crush only.
Okay. What is the funniest bug you've ever experienced?
The funniest bug, I never thought about this. So this is the funniest bug. And nothing that actually comes on top of my mind. But it's usually like, when you come with this like a crazy scenario, you say, yeah, I found the bug, and the developer asks, like, what did you find? And then you say, you know what, I actually turned on my phone, then I put it like under the table, then I put it back, then I switched on my Wi-Fi, then I did this, and he was like, seriously? So this is probably something that happens, often, and the developers like laugh at you. I remember I found once the bug, and it's not a bug, I found that my artist in my team, he was supposed to illustrate something. And to me, it really looked like a poop, like from a pigeon. And I said, this looks like a pigeon poop. And he was like, oh my God, so this is more like things I'm coming up with. So I see I can insult people at work. But this is what I'm saying. It's very important to bring like this inner player inside of you and say, like, what did you see there? Do you really see the design that meant to be there, or do you see like a pigeon poop instead? And also, like, maybe discuss it.
All right, thank you. I don't see if you have any more questions in the chat. So thank you so much for your talk and answering all the questions. But I have one last question. Are you active on Instagram or Twitter or something so people can follow you?
Yes, I'm trying to tweet on Twitter. Maybe not like every day, but I do it sometimes. If I see some like useful tips, I try to share it there. I can send you my Twitter name maybe like separately, or how do I do that?
Yeah, so I was asking for the community if they maybe have a question and maybe want to reach out to you.
Yeah, I actually can share the very useful resource. If you're interested in testing, if you want to become a tester, it's called Ministry of Testing. You see really like experienced testers or QA people from all over the world, where you can share your ideas, you can ask for support and for help. It has 2 different, it can be free or it can be like premium access, but even with free access, you can get help from your QA peers. So that can be useful. Ministry of Testing it's called.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the end of our lunch talk. If you're interested in the other events that are coming up, either subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow our Facebook page for more events and our other social medias. But with that said, have a nice day, and I'll see you next week. See you later.